Welcome to Fighting Stats, the ultimate channel for MMA fans who love statistics and betting breakdowns. I'm your host, Art C, and I'm here to get you ready for the upcoming UFC fights. In this series, I'll be watching tape and providing my real-time analysis on how I think the fights are going to go. I'll be watching for fighters' strengths, weaknesses, tendencies, and overall strategies, pairing that with Fighting Stats' exclusive UFC stats not available anywhere else to give you a prediction on how I think the fights are going to go and ultimately who's going to win. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Welcome to Fighting Stats. Welcome back to Fighting Stats. I'm your host, Art C, and today we are breaking down the UFC 300 light heavyweight fight between Yuri Prochazka and Aleksandar Rakic. Aleksandar Rakic coming off of a 2-year layoff, coming on after a knee injury. Now he is back in the top 5 here, taking on Yuri Prochazka. What we're going to do is we're going to go deep into the fighting stats, see what the numbers say, see how the fight plays out there. We did watch all the fight tape on Aleksandar Rakic. We watched the fight tape on Yuri Prochazka. So then I'll give you my prediction on how I think the fight's going to go. What the tendencies of both fighters are, what the weaknesses that I've seen in the fight tape go, and then sort of I'll get into our best bets. I'll assign some numbers there to our most likely outcomes, and it'll tell us how much to bet on each outcome. So let's get this breakdown started. Starting here with our fighting tapes, tail of the tape, we put Yuri Prochazka here on the blue corner. We have Aleksandar Rakic in the red corner. So Yuri Prochazka 3-1 in the UFC, 67% of his wins coming from KO, 33% from submission, has not gone to decision yet. Does have one loss there, lost by TKO. That was in his last fight there against Alex Pereira. On the Rakic side, 6-2 in the UFC, one of those early careers there. 33% of his wins by coming from TKO, 67% of his wins coming from decision. Worth noting that those 33% of wins coming from KO, one was a spinning back fist and one was a head kick. So those are his KO wins. He does have two KO losses, two UFC losses, one by KO, one by decision there. So looking into the offensive striking here for Yuri Prochazka, 79% of his striking is going to be at a distance, 17% of it's going to be on the ground, and then only 4% there in the clinch. He does like to stand at a distance there and basically strike. Target breakdown, 88% towards the head, 10% towards the body there, and only 2% to the legs. Yuri Prochazka, not a big leg kicker. Striking offense, 52% head accuracy, pretty good. 84% body accuracy, 89% leg accuracy, but again, he doesn't throw many kicks there. Average strikes thrown by round, does have a decent output at 46 strikes thrown in round number 1, 42 in round number 2, 59 in round number 3, and then it drops off there in rounds 4 and 5. With this being a 3-round fight, we'll just concentrate on the first 3 rounds there. So strikes landed in rounds 1, 24, strikes landed in round 2, 24, and then round 3 pops up to 43 there. He does have 2 career knockdowns coming early, both of them coming in round number 2. One was against Volkan Ozdemir, and one was that spinning back elbow there against Dominic Reyes there. So overall accuracy, 54% striking accuracy. We talked about the 2 knockdowns. I wanted to show you the leg kicks here. He did throw 5 or 6 leg kicks against Alex Pereira, 5 of them landing. But before that, he would have thrown 3 in the rest of his UFC career. So overall, 9 leg kicks attempted, 8 of them have been successful. Just not the highest number of leg kicks there. He'd rather just stand and punch and sort of thing. So on the defensive striking here, so a couple of numbers that really jump out of the page. Most of his strikes absorbed going to be 65% going to be at a distance. 30% of his strikes absorbed have been on the ground. So there is a weakness there to the ground, eating some shots on the ground there, 4% in the clinch. Target breakdown against 81% towards the head, 13% towards the body, 7% towards the leg. Defensive striking, head strikes, 55% head strike defense. Not great numbers. That's more than half of the strikes towards the head are landing. One of the things that we've noticed from Yuri Prochazka, though, he does have a chin. He can take some big shots, come back. He did obviously get dropped by Alex Pereira in that last fight, but Alex Pereira sort of drops everybody, so pretty understandable. So body strike defense, 77% and 83% leg strike defense. Not the greatest leg checker as well. Average strikes absorbed by round does drop off, but so does the volume there. So absorbs 29 strikes in round number 1, drops down to 20 in round 2, and then 22 in round number 3. Has been knocked down once in his career against, that was Alex Pereira in round number 2 in that last time. So overall, 59% defensive striking there. I did want to highlight these leg kicks here. So this is in the UFC. Even before the UFC, when he fought in Rizin, he fought Mohammed King Molal. He fought CB Dalloway. Both of those guys, somewhat wrestlers, but able to work the outside low kick that had Yuri Prochazka jumping on one leg. Overall in the UFC, Yuri Prochazka has seen 29 leg kicks. 24 of them have been successful. 12 of them have been against Alex Pereira. You can watch that first round there. Alex Pereira landing a couple of leg kicks. I think it took 4 before Yuri Prochazka really had, you could see it visibly damaging. Early in his career, what I noticed from Yuri Prochazka is that he used to stand orthodox a lot, but the outside low kick became such a liability that he had to learn how to be able to switch to southpaw. Naturally, he wants to stand orthodox. He'll open up orthodox, but he is more recently switching to southpaw, and I think it's, again, just to limit the amount of damage that he is taking on that lead leg. So let's moving over to the Rakic side, offensive striking. 57% of his strikes are going to be coming from a distance, 11% in the clinch, and 32% of his strikes are going to be on the ground there. In terms of target, does break it down a little bit. 71% head target accuracy or target breakdown, 11% towards the body, and 17% to the legs. He is a big leg kicker as well. So striking accuracy, 41% head strike accuracy, pretty decent. 77 towards the leg, and 77 towards the body, 73% towards the legs there. In terms of average strikes thrown by round, average medium volume here, 35 strikes in round number 1, 38 strikes thrown in round number 2, 36 in round number 3. So fairly consistent in the mid-30s in terms of strikes thrown. Strikes landed with 18 round 1, 21 in round 2, and 17 in round 3. He does have 4 career knockdowns, 3 of them coming in round number 1, 1 of them coming in round number 3 there. So overall, he is 51 strikes accuracy there. Again, we talked about those 4 knockdowns. One of them was coming in round number 1 against Anthony Smith. One of them, that head kick against Jimmy Manawa. One of them was that spinning back forearm against Devin Clark there. And then one of them round 3 against Justin Ledet there. So I did want to highlight these leg kick numbers here. 126 leg kicks thrown in his UFC career. 92 have been successful there. You can see against Jan in the round 1, he threw 12. Round 1 against Thiago Santos, he threw 10. 11 here against Anthony Smith there. So big leg kicker, especially early. We'll talk about how big of a difference that's going to make here. So red defensive striking. So this is Rakic defensive striking, defensive at a distance. 76% of his strikes at a distance, 19% in the clinch, and only 5% on the ground. His target against pretty broken down there. So 63% of strikes against, or target against, is towards the head, 17 towards the body, 19 towards the legs there. Defensive head strike actually better than a Yuri, 33% head defense, 59% body defense, and 81% leg defense. Not a big concern against Yuri Prochazka here. Strikes absorbed by round, does a decent job of limiting the amount of shots he takes. 11 absorbed in round number 1, 9 absorbed in round number 2, and 11 absorbed in round number 3. He has only been knocked down once. That was against Devin Clark. Oh yeah, Devin Clark. He threw a left hook, I think. Rakic was trying to circle over to the right. Devin Clark landed that left hook, dropped him early as the minus 600 favorite, and then again he came back and finished that fight. So worth noting there. So let's go into the grappling. I don't know if the grappling is going to be a big factor, but we will touch on the numbers because I have a sneaky suspicion that it might come into play in this fight, and I'll tell you why in a bit. So Yuri Prochazka offensive grappling, I won't touch too much on this side. Yuri Prochazka's only attempted 4 takedowns. 2 of them have been successful. It is worth noting that coming into the Alex Pereira fight, Yuri Prochazka only attempted 1 takedown in the UFC, with one of them being successful. But against Alex Pereira, he attempted 3 takedowns. Obviously, that's Alex Pereira. You want to get the fight down to the ground, but it just tells you maybe he sees a weakness. He will take the fight to sort of where he goes. While on the flip side, it might have been because Alex Pereira was beating up that lead leg. Yuri Prochazka had really no option to deal with the lead damage other than try to get the takedown. So 2 trains of thought there. I think it was the leg kicks, but we'll talk about that in a bit. Yuri Prochazka defensive grappling here. So these numbers I do want to talk about a little bit. 19 takedown attempts he's seen so far. 6 of them have been successful. He averages about 0.8 takedowns allowed, 0.75 takedowns allowed in round number 1 for Yuri, and then none in round 2, 1 in round 3. So worth noting those ones. Does give up a decent amount of control time after he gives up the the top control. It was Glover Teixeira, the ones that shot most of the takedowns on him. 2 takedowns there in round number 1, ended up with 69 seconds of control time. 1 takedown in round number 3, got 77 seconds of control time. 1 takedown in round 4, 153 seconds, and 1 takedown in round 5, 93 seconds. So when Yuri Prochazka does get taken down, yes, he survived the ground with Glover Teixeira, but he did get mounted a couple of times. He does get controlled a little bit. So I wanted to talk about the Rakić offensive grappling. So from the tape, we didn't see much great grappling from Rakić, but he does have a lot of control time from the takedowns. So over his career, he's only attempted 20 takedowns over his career. 5 of them have been successful. On average, he attempts 1 takedown per round, 1 takedown in round number 1, 0.7 takedowns in round 2, and 1.3 takedowns in round number 3. You can see the success rate, about 0.3 in round 1, 0.2 in round 2, 0.3 in round 3. The reason I mention is that look here against Jan Blachowicz here, he goes for the takedown. He gets the takedown there, 273 seconds of control time from that 1 takedown. A couple of, worth noting against Anthony Smith there. Anthony Smith tried to grapple with him. He ended up reversing the position. 200 seconds in round number 1 against Anthony Smith, the control time. 271 in round 2, 261 seconds of round 3. Never any time was Rakić on top did he really look to move the position to southpaw to mount anything like that. It was mostly control time, ground and pound. Let's look at some of these strikes actually thrown. So look at these ground strikes thrown, 150 ground strikes thrown over this UFC career. 15 to Jan. Again, we talked about Anthony Smith, about 21 against Anthony Smith. Devin Clark, Justin Lodette, a couple of ground strikes. That was more follow-up ground and pound. So I won't go into the red defensive grappling. Pretty good defensive grappling, though, here. Rakić has seen 20 takedown attempts against. Only 2 of them have been successful. So in terms of numbers there, it doesn't look like Yuri Prochazka is really going to shoot many takedowns. If he does, I don't know if they're going to be successful. So let's get into sort of what the numbers say. That's what the numbers say. Let's get into where my fight prediction is going to go. If you go back and watch the Yuri Prochazka, Alex Pereira breakdown, I did talk a lot about the outside low kick, and I do want to say it's going to play a big factor in this fight here as well. So we're going to start with the Yuri Prochazka, what we see, what we like, things like that. So Yuri Prochazka, he's mainly a striker. He's going to be light on his feet. He bounces around. He has a very wide stance. He likes to fight in orthodox. We talked about that. And only more recently has he been switching to southpaw. But he'll stand in orthodox if he has the chance. He, again, wide stance. He puts a lot of weight on that lead foot, and he sort of leans forward with his head. A lot of fighters, well, not a lot of fighters, but what Yuri will do is sort of bait the opponent. He'll put weight on that front foot, put that head forward a little bit, and he's sort of baiting the opponent to try to get him to come forward. Because he keeps that wide stance, he's going to extend back when the fighter comes forward with the strikes. And then as the opponent is coming forward, he's going to start coming back and throw the counter to the counter, basically. So he's trying to set up the original shot, trying to bait the entry in so that he can move out of the way and then throw his counter straight right. So the problem with that is that because he puts so much weight on that lead leg, it really makes him susceptible to the outside low kick. We did see it against Alex Pereira. We saw it earlier in the gear. Again, I'm going to talk about the Mohammed King Molal back when he fought in Rizin, CB Dalloway. Go back and watch those fights where those fighters were able to use the outside low kick against orthodox. That's that left leg there. And Rakić, we talked about how much volume this guy throws, especially leg kicks. He loves the outside low kick, and he throws it early and often. We'll get into that side shortly, but I do see a clear path to victory here for Rakić using the outside low kicks. We saw that Yuri doesn't really like to take them too much. And then against Alex Pereira, he got so fed up with the leg kicks that he ended up shooting for a takedown. Against Alex Pereira, it makes sense. Try to get him down to the ground. He has a weakness on the ground. Against Rakić, I don't know if he will be able to get the fight down to the ground. And then if he does, I don't think he has an advantage over Rakić on the ground either. So if the fight's standing, you're going to look to Yuri. If he spends any time in orthodox, he's going to get pounded with that outside low kick. If he switches to southpaw, the thing with Rakic is that he's not afraid of throwing the same low kick towards the southpaw. He'll just go to the other leg there. So he might continue to throw the leg kick there to the right leg. And if Yuri's not able to check those, which he hasn't really done so in the past, you might see some damage to both legs there and then somewhat compromised in the later round. So definitely a path to victory here for Rakic with the outside low kicks. The thing that Yuri does well is, again, he baits his opponents in. He's very unorthodox. He does come forward and he does have a good chin. So he does take some shots. And so if he gets into a firefight, I did prefer Yuri Prochazka to sort of beat Alex Pereira if he got into a firefight. Just because he can take some damage, just because he can throw some unorthodox strikes. You remember the spinning back elbow that he landed on Reyes. A lot of these fights, he's taking a lot of damage. He is very hittable, but then he comes back and he lands and he finishes guys. So look for Yuri Prochazka. If he's going to have some success, it's going to be standing. It's going to have to be some unorthodox striking. He might have to land early. Rakic does do a good job of defensively striking, and we talked about that, right? So the big difference in the numbers here was the defensive striking of Yuri Prochazka. We talked about how hittable he is. 55% of head strikes towards the head are landing versus the defensive striking of Yuri Prochazka. Rakic here is only 33%. So look for Rakic. The only difference, okay, so we'll move over to the Rakic side, what he does well, what he doesn't do too well. Again, he loves to throw the outside low kick. He throws those low kicks all early and often, so that's going to be a big story there. In round number one, what I find is that he will take the outside of the cage. He will stand in kicking range. He's okay with standing in kicking range. He does a good job of jumping in and out. He'll throw the leg kicks. He'll throw high kicks, all that stuff. He'll stand in kicking range to sort of feel his opponent out. But he will throw some jabs. He'll jump in, throw some 1-2s, all that sort of thing. So, but most of the time he tries to play it safe. He'll move back as his opponents move forward. So I don't know if Yuri Prochazka is going to find too much success on the feet, just because if Rakic does move around a little bit, then it's not going to let Yuri Prochazka really sit down on a lot of those punches. But you never count Yuri out. One of the X factors I do want to talk about is Aleksandar Rakic's wrestling. And we saw it in the last fight here when he fought Jan Blachowicz. He got Jan Blachowicz down. He got Anthony Smith down and sort of laid on him. I talked about, again, there was no real submission threat when he got the fight down to the ground, but he does a decent job of just controlling the position, limiting the amount of damage, winning the minutes, and then throwing ground and pound from half guard or full guard or whatever it is there. Yuri Prochazka is not going to be any threat off of his back if he does get the fight down. So if you go over to the Aleksandar Rakic's Instagram, and again, Rakic has been off for 2 years. So I wanted to see sort of what has he been doing in the 2 years? How does he look like? Every Instagram post for Aleksandar Rakic, he has wrestling shoes on. He's talking about how he feels good, how he knew his knee was better because, in the wrestling sessions, he's able to pop a lot of these takedowns, defend takedowns, all that stuff. I did see an interview as well for Rakic on the Ariel Helwani show. He talked about how he sees some weaknesses for Yuri Prochazka, that he's going to be the one to sort of exploit those weaknesses. Ariel smart enoughly asked him what he thought those weaknesses were. He talked about Yuri being hittable, he getting hit and rocked in a lot of fights, but that he comes back and sort of wins. And then he did talk about the takedown defense, and he talked about how there's going to be a clear path for him to work the grappling or work the wrestling. And I think that's the case. He's really been training it. I don't think he's going to really destroy him on the ground, but I think once he does get a takedown, I think he can control him, win minutes and such. So on the feet, I think Rakic with the leg kicks and being able to limit the amount of damage that he takes on the feet is probably good on the Rakic side. If it does hit the ground, I think it's Rakic the one that is looking for the takedown. I think he has more takedown grappling upside to win minutes. I think it's going to be hard here for Yuri to win a lot of minutes because he's more big moments. And if Rakic can land those leg kicks early, it's going to take away a lot of the power from Yuri. So I do see some pass here from Yuri. It's just Rakic has been off for 2 years. What does he look like coming back? How is he, adjusting? He talked about the in round one against the Jan Blachowicz side. Coming into that fight, he was off for 14 months. Pretty long layoff there. When he does throw his hands, so he throws a lot of kicks, yes. When he does throw his hands, none of his hands land. So he'll throw a lot of 1-2s. Again, he stands in kicking range. So when he throws the 1-2, he's often pretty short on the 1-2. It's because he's not expecting maybe the opponent to move back. As soon as you move back a little bit, you can see his 1-2s are short. So I think the striking success does come from the leg kicks. If he does land a couple of shots, maybe it's a jab move, maybe it's a jab moving back. Rakic does do a good job of punching backwards or moving backwards, so I can see a couple of things, strikes landing there. I just don't think Rakic has a ton of power. Mix in with Yuri Prochazka's decent chin, I doubt that Rakic is going to find any knockouts. Maybe a knockdown, but it would sort of be a fluke knockdown sort of thing. So let's go over to our Fighting Stats dashboard here, our handy dandy bankroll tracker. So what I like to do is I like to go through the specific odds of each outcome of the fight. It helps me determine where the money line should be, where the value should be, sort of thing. So let's go through it. We have Yuri Prochazka still on the blue side, Rakic on the red side here. Starting out with Prochazka to win by TKO. I'm going to say that's his most likely path to victory. I think he's going to have to land. We did see Rakic get dropped by Devin Clark there. We have seen Rakic take some big shots as well. Seemed to take some shots better. Again, he got dropped by Devin Clark, which is not a great look. And then he has been hittable. So the TKO for Yuri is pretty live, especially if he wants to keep the fight standing, which he does. So I'm going to start with 25% Yuri Prochazka TKO. I think that's fair. We'll come back and adjust it if needed. Yuri Prochazka to win by submission. I don't see it here. Yeah, he submitted Glover, but that was after 5 rounds. Glover completely gassed out, all that stuff. So it's between 0% and 5%. I think it's closer to 0% just because Yuri Prochazka is not going to actively grapple. Maybe it comes by guillotine if Rakic does try to grapple. He puts the head on the wrong side, all that stuff. So we'll leave it at 0. I'm fine with that for now. Yuri Prochazka to win the decision. It's going to be possible, but not likely. I just don't see where Prochazka wins a ton of minutes. Yuri Prochazka being hittable, not a huge volume striker, more power puncher here. So 15% sounds right, maybe 10% even, but we'll leave it at 15% for now. Rakic to win by TKO. I think it's possible. Again, I talked about how good Prochazka's chin is. I talked about how Rakic doesn't have a ton of power in his hands. Again, the 2 TKO wins that Rakic has in the UFC, one of them coming from a nice head kick setup. He threw the head kick against Jimmy Manuwa, put him out flat, and then he did the spinning back forearm against Devin Clark. 2 TKO wins, but very low percentage TKO wins. It wasn't like he set up a right hand, counter left hook, anything like that. Very hard to replicate a head kick KO, very hard to replicate a spinning back fist KO. So I do think if the TKO happens, I think I would have preferred it to come in a 5-round fight. I think the cardio of Rakic probably a little bit better and probably more live in the later rounds. But in a 3-round fight, I think it's possible. I think if Rakic does pile up the leg kick damage and Yuri Prochazka is a one-legged fighter, that the TKO comes a little bit easier there. So I'm going to put it at 15%. I think that sounds about right here. Rakic to win by submission. I think it's not 0%. I think it's not 10% because Rakic, I don't think, has attempted a takedown or a submission attempt. Let me just double check. Just because from what we've seen from him in the grappling, again, he's just content with hanging out in full guard, half guard, more control over submission. I haven't really seen him go for many position changes there. He does have one sub attempt there then against Volkan Ozdemir. I think that was a guillotine if I not mistaken. I don't remember too much grappling in that fight there. So yeah, I don't see very many sub wins. I'm going to put it 5% because I do think that Rakic, if he does look to grapple, I think he can get the fight down to the ground. And then just by the ways of Yuri off of his back, the sub has to be not 0%. So we'll leave it at 5 there. And then Rakic's decision, I do think it's his most likely path to victory here. I think that he'll win minutes from both circling the outside, popping the leg kicks. I think he'll win minutes from any kind of grappling exchanges if he does get the fight down to the ground. And I do think that Rakic has a better cardio in this fight. So 25%, if I go 25%, I'm a little bit short. I'm going to go 30% here for Rakic, maybe a little bit more, 35% to win by decision there. I'm short 5% again here. Yuri Prochazka to win by TKO. Okay, we'll go 30% on that side. So to summarize here, these look about right. Yuri to win by TKO 30% plus 233 or better. Yuri to win by sub 0%. I'm not going to entertain that. Yuri to win by decision 15% plus 567 or better. Rakic to win by KKO 15%, 567 or better. Rakic to win by sub 1900 or better. And then Rakic to win by decision plus 35% plus 186 or better. Total money line on the Yuri side, 45% or plus 122. Rakic side, 55% minus 122. I think that sounds about right, and I haven't seen the odds. What I try to do is I try to not see the odds until I tape it. If I know I'm not going to bet it, why do I care about the odds? So those are my numbers. Let's go over to fightodds.io just to check out where the lines are. I have a feeling that Yuri's going to be a favorite, and I think that's because just of the layoff. Fightodds.io, sorry. It's hard to really be confident in Rakic with a 2-year layoff. How does he look coming back? He did talk about having 2 surgeries before he came in on the knee, on the left knee, and now he's having an ACL reconstructive surgery or whatever it is, off for 2 years. So if we assume that he looks somewhat like he did when he was before he left off, so he's going to do the outside low kicks. He did talk about interviews how he's pretty much the same sort of fighter here. UFC300. Where is it here? Oh, yeah, okay. Well, pretty even there. So they have Yuri Prochazka plus 110, Rakic minus 130. So that's going in line there. I'm pretty surprised, actually. So 110 here for Yuri, plus 110, minus 130 for Rakic. I think that's fair. That's exactly sort of where I had my numbers at. You can see my Kelly Criterion calculator here saying minus 0.6 on the money line for Yuri, minus 0.4% value-wise for Rakic side. So my pick is going to be Rakic. I think he, again, just more ways of winning. I'm kind of surprised by the line that it was I'm surprised that I was right about the line. I thought that the public would have favored Yuri's side, especially with Rakic coming off of injury. I wasn't super impressed by Rakic, I'll be honest, in terms of the matchup, in terms of his fighting style. I just think it's just a bad matchup for Yuri. Rakic does things well that Yuri does things poorly, and then Yuri, he's going to try to have to get off some big strikes, but Rakic does good at sort of limiting that. So as long as Rakic looks somewhat similar than he did before, I'm willing to back that side. We'll see closer up to the date, maybe some weigh-in pictures, maybe some training videos, things like that, but everything that I've seen from Rakic points to that he's okay. He's been off for a long time. He said that he was recovered back in August. He was supposed to fight in January on the Toronto card. That fight scrapped, and then they offered him Yuri. He talked about how he wanted to fight in February or in March. Yuri said he wasn't ready for February or March, so now he's looking at April. They both agreed at UFC300, so it's going down there. So yeah, I think I like the Rakic side. I talked about everything I think I needed to talk about. When the odds actually come out, we'll look at a play there. I'm going to be looking at a Rakic decision. I do think that it's 50-50 for it to go to decision, not to go to decision, but I think if it goes to decision, it's heavily weighted on Rakic side. If it doesn't go to decision, it's heavily weighted on the Yuri side. So we might see some decent inside the distance only numbers, decent decision only numbers. We'll keep an eye out those on DraftKings or books like that. So I hope you learned something. I hope you got something out of this, found it valuable. If you did, please like and subscribe. Tell me how I'm doing. My name is Art C. This is Fighting Stats. We have all the stats that you need to know. We do post of all of our plays when we do post them to patreon.com/fightingstats. So give us a follow there. And again, my name is Art C. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the show. All right, guys. Well, that is it for today. Thank you very much for watching. If you like this type of content, make sure you smash the like button, hit the subscribe. You'll get notified anytime we put out new content. Listen to this. We just hit a massive parlay for $29,000 at UFC 297. That is one UFC after 296 where we hit a parlay for $82,000. That's back-to-back parlays. We've made $110,000. And how do we do it? We use our exclusive fighting stats, not available anywhere else. Our exclusive fighting stats gives us information, gives us a big edge over the sportsbooks, and tell us what's going to happen within the fights. We post all that information, our breakdowns, our best bets, over at patreon.com/fighting stats. Don't miss out. Make sure you subscribe today. Again, my name is Art C. This is Fighting Stats. Thanks for watching.